Hi, Shashi.
Hi, sir. Welcome to the Red Sparrow. Welcome
Thank,
to Untangled.
thank
Today,
you.
we are going to be untangling all the bits and pieces that go into making Baradwaj Rangan, both the artist and the person behind the artist.
Oh my God. I don't. I'd call myself an artist though, but yeah, thanks.
How have you been in this lockdown? Has your work structure changed or has it
No,
remained the same?
actually, it's remained fairly the same, except the fact that I have not been going to the theaters to watch movies. It's remained exactly the same. Yeah, so it's now we watch everything on OTT, or people send screeners. So that way, there's a bit of change in schedule. But in terms of work, there's always content to review, so it keeps coming up, and so yeah.
How many films are you watching now? And how many films are you watching out of your job, not for reviewing?
I try to generally watch a film a day. That's been a ritual for a long time now. I don't get much on shows and things like that. Very rarely, unless something is really gripping. Because uh, I try to watch. I mean, there's so many films to catch up on that you haven't seen that you need to watch that it never stops. So that becomes like a film a day, roughly.
Are you also reading or catching up on other forms of art?
Yeah. So when I'm not watching films, I read. I listen to music. So I read quite a bit. Yes.
Can you recommend some books or movies that we should be watching in this lockdown?
Books and movies that you should be reading now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say. Well, I don't know where you get them because I picked up a lot of the books that I have either through my own foreign travels or whenever friends come down and they ask, "What should I get you?" and I'm like, always give them 5 books to bring back to me. So, uh, yeah, but I would say I like reading uh, all the Faber and Faber autobiographical, not autobiographical, but they have these conversations with filmmakers. Like basically, they take a filmmaker through a journey of his films, and you hear about fantastic things. And like what I'm reading now is Robert Altman's interviews, and it's really fascinating because he's really a for instance, he says he doesn't like Hitchcock because Hitchcock's films are too linear for him, and it's fascinating because it's that. I mean, you shouldn't really enshrine anybody to the extent that you can't listen to any contrarian viewpoint, right? So it's all like, I mean, I love Hitchcock, but it's always interesting to hear from someone who hates Hitchcock, so that you kind of get a different point of view. So I'm enjoying the book. Yeah.
Can you also suggest some movies that are not very talked about or some rare gems on OTT platforms that you might have come across in this lockdown?
I would say OTT seek out the foreign films because unknown to a lot of people, see the things that get publicized are all this slightly soft porn kind of movies. The dark desire.
Yeah.
Whatever the titles themselves are quite scary. So those are the ones that get publicized a lot. But if you look beneath, and there are many foreign films that are really available, and surprisingly so. Like I saw Jacques Audiard's Deepan, which is a Cannes Palme d'Or winner
Mhm.
from I think 2015 or 16. I saw that and I was like, wow, this film is on Netflix. I didn't know that. So yeah, that way, it's a
Mhm.
great revelation when you go past the uh, you know the uh, uh, the traditional what's on top and then come down below. I think that's really quite interesting. Yeah.
So we follow a certain format with this conversation. But before that, I want to ask a certain question to set the tone of the
Okay.
conversation. What How do you define film criticism, and how is it more than just a term criticism?
So I've said this before. I'm not really a big fan of this word criticism. I would like to call it analysis, but I suppose now the term criticism is so
Escape.
entrenched in vocabulary that that's become the default
Mhm.
thing for anything that anybody who does the job that I do. So film criticism, I would say, is basically watching a film and trying to talk through its various layers from, trying to put it together, trying to. So it's like literary criticism, which came before film criticism, obviously, because books have existed before films. Now, when a book critic takes up a book, the two things that come up are what what is my reaction to the book, and that's the easy question to answer, which is like, yes, I like the book. No, I didn't like the book. I was, or okay, it was. I'm somewhere between yes and no. So, but then the second question is, so you've answered the question, what is my opinion of the book? Now the second question is why.
Mm-hmm.
That's the more complicated question, because now you're saying, okay, the book didn't work for me, but what exactly did it not work for me? This character did not work for me. I was annoyed every time this character turned up, but that's still very superficial. Why were you annoyed every time this character turned up? Was it something they did? Was it the way they spoke?
Mm-hmm.
Was it because they were not well defined? Did you know somebody in life like that character who annoyed you, and therefore when you read it in the book, did that annoyance transfer itself from? So is it something personal? Now that's the tough part, because that's really for me, the crux of film criticism, trying to get at. So because it's like, it's easy to say the cinematography is beautiful, but what are you talking about? Are you talking about just a series of pretty pictures, or are you talking about? Then you have to talk about, if you're talking about some kind of thematic design to the cinematography, you have to say, okay, so where did you notice it? Because otherwise, you're just like, anybody can say anything, right? This is like I look at it like, you have to be as responsible for your opinion as a scientist is for his theorem. You have to prove it. And I like to prove things. Like, I like to say, at least to the subjective extent that I can, like I would say, I'm saying this because I'm saying the
Yes, yes.
performance is good because, rather than just saying, oh, he gives a great performance, which can mean anything. I'm like, what is my judgment based on? So I'm saying that even if you don't think it's a great performance, for me, it's a great performance because of this reason. So that's very important for me.
So I guess that comes from watching a lot of films. Can you tell us how many films have you watched till now?
I don't know.
Never counted?
Completely unhealthy number. I've been a critic. This is my 18th year as a critic. So which means that if you just count the number of films I've reviewed, one of my friends likes to joke saying that if all the horrible films that you've had to watch, if you take like 3 hours for them and multiply them by the number of horrible films, that much of your life you can do something else. You could have
Yeah.
done something else with that. So I never think back about the numbers, but yeah, I love. But the point is that that's going to be there in every job, right? It's you're going to have good days and bad days in every job. I look at it that way. So I'm not terribly upset by the fact that there are, I get to watch a bad film or something like that. Yes, while you're watching it, you're wincing in pain probably, but you know in the long run, it's a small annoyance.
Very true. So now we'll get into the format. So we divide this interview into three sections. The first one is called Inception. So there we will talk about your childhood and your days at BITS Pilani and your work as an IT consultant and a copywriter. Then we will go into the second section called Assembly Line. So
Okay.
we'll talk about your early beginnings as a film critic and a writer on cinema. And then we'll go into the third section called Harvest, where we will talk about the work that we see today.
Okay.
So let's begin with Inception.
Okay.
Uh, were you always inclined towards watching films as a child, and was it encouraged in your family? And how did it change when you reached BITS Pilani? Because in engineering colleges, people at least watch films, if not anything else.
So I'm see, we were always a very film and music crazy and book crazy family. So when I say crazy, like my uncle, uh, he is he was in Kanpur for a long time, and he basically grew up in the north. We are Tamilians, but he grew up in the north, and so basically, he from him I got that whole Hindi music culture.
Okay.
From my grandmother I got a whole Carnatic music culture. So all these influences kind of came together. But generally speaking, music, movies, and reading were three big things at home. So later, now when I look back, it seems almost like a no-brainer that I'm writing about, movies and music a lot. Uh, uh, so it was always that. But I think what really, today when I look back, I think it's the fact that even the general films, Along with enjoying it for the surface level, I would always like find myself coming back and thinking about patterns and things that my friends probably would not be thinking about, or I'd be making a comparison to another movie, or things like that. It's like not in a like even while the discussion happened, people would keep telling me, you know, my God, why are you getting so serious about this? It's just a movie. For me, it was never just a movie. So I
Okay.
think that's what that really kind of showed me a lot of how that would be different. But then when I went to BITS, at that time there were obviously no laptops and all that kind of stuff. So it was only one movie, but one movie every 15 days or something like that. There was a movie club.
Okay.
But the point is, one of the greatest discoveries for me was the BITS library had an art section, which I literally stumbled into because you typically don't really go into this thing, and I found so many great books there about cinema. And I had never ever seen cinema being dissected or analyzed in such
Mhm.
a deep way earlier. So that was a big eye opener for me. The fact that people could take popular films, mainstream Hollywood films, and talk about them in a very deep and enriching way. And also talking about, that's when I started realizing that how films are put together, what are the things that that how do they,
Mhm.
directors direct, how do actors act, Lee Strasberg method, all
Mhm.
these terms, you kind of I was kind of stumbling upon then. And yeah, then, like, in Chennai, even when I was in Chennai, I'd gotten into a foreign film screening society because it just
Okay.
felt like something that would be interesting. And I would watch films, and I would go to the USIS library and then read about those films and then try to watch them again because they would have video cassettes or DVDs of those films. So all this kind of like brought me to a place where I kind of decided that this is what I should be doing. So like everybody else, I got pushed into engineering in my generation, uh, and but then after the course got over, and after I did a couple of stints in engineering, and I pretty much knew that this was never going to be me. So then I went into advertising simply because I thought I wanted to write, and this was a great way to write. But then I found out that advertising is more of business writing. So it's like you're basically doing. It's not creative writing in the sense that you're basically delivering something that for the client.
Hmm.
I'm not denying that there's creative advertising as well, but a lot of what you do is not that cool and creative. It's basically saying 50% off Bata Chappal. That's kind of the ads that you write, right? So it's
Okay.
like, so and I think that's something that kept me going. So when I was in the US, I started watching movies and writing reviews on email, which I was sending out to a bunch of friends. And without my knowing, they were sending it out to their friends and their friends, and it was getting like one chain reaction kind of thing was happening. And one of those emails landed up at the inbox of this lady who was taking up editorship of the New Sunday Express. So she said, "I'm looking for someone. Do you want to join? Because I like your voice, the way you write about films." Uh, and that was a time when it just like you have to make one of those decisions. Should I stay back? Should I get a green card? Should I do all that kind of stuff? Or should I just say F it and just jump in? And I think I just jumped in, and here I am talking to you.
Since you said that you start analyzing movies when you watch it, uh, do you and your friends also say like, why are you thinking so much about it?
Yeah.
Do you now ever watch a film without the lateral thinking?
No, and I get asked this question all the time, and I don't know how to like answer this anytime. See, because like I give the same example. Let's say Pandit Jasraj just passed away, so I'm going to give you an example of Hindustani music, right? Let's say you walk into a Hindustani concert without knowing the music, right? And you just listen to it and you find it pleasant and you like it, and you're saying, oh, it's very soothing, it's very relaxing, or whatever it is. Oh, look, the voice is great and all that. But the thing is, if you know the music, if you know what it is, you're not only finding it pleasant and soothing and all those things, but you're also able to answer those why am I liking it? Why? Because it's this rag, and this rag has this particular phrase, and he's using this particular phrase so differently. How lovely is it? And oh, I remember how, Allah Rakha used to sing that same phrase, and like that was so different, and all this chakkar is happening inside your head. So I'm saying that it's an involuntary thing, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not enjoying it. You are enjoying it. If you weren't enjoying it, it would be a very big pain to just like see, one of the greatest things about art is its emotional appeal, right? For me, the emotional appeal comes first. The intellectual appeal comes later, which is why I said even earlier that the first question is, did I like it? Right? That's the first question. And then only I go into why.
Right, yeah.
And when I say emotional appeal, again, I don't mean to generally say I have to laugh, I have to cry. It can also be like a cold film like 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is not really an emotional, sentimental kind of film. But I'm saying that I'm drawn in on some journey. Like I'm enjoying like something. And that always comes first for me, whatever the movie is. I have never gone to a movie and said, oh, this is so intelligent and therefore I like it. That's never happened with me. For me, there always has to be an emotional pull. And again, that's what I mean. By emotion, I don't necessarily mean I have to cry or laugh or something like that, but there has to be that my emotions have to be engaged. So the feeling always comes first in art, according to me.
You mean it should be engaging, first of all? Do you mean that?
Yeah, it should be engaging. It should draw you in. It should not just be this
you should
remote.
Feel invested.
You should feel invested. You should want to go on that journey, even if it's a hard journey. You should want to go on the journey, and once. See, my theory is always that if it's a familiar kind of film, then you're with it right from the beginning. If it's a slightly different kind of film, then maybe it will take you 15-20 minutes to accustom yourself to the pace or the type of filmmaking. But once that adjustment happens, you'll be on the journey. So
true. Can you also share the books you came across at BITS Pilani so that we can also read them? People watching us can.
Good God, this is like 75
about filmmaking.
years back. I'm like,
or any book which should be good for critics.
So I would say there's a series of conversations with Michael Ondaatje and Walter Murch. It's just called Conversations, and they really talk about what is the emotion behind film. And I think that's what's important. People think that if you want to become a film critic, you need to know what the shot is and tracking shot and something and a zoom and a this and a that. No, it's not that, because yes, of course that will help you appreciate it in a technical manner. But if you write in your review the blocking is good, or the pan zoom, too much of that, you piss off the reader, because they want to know how the thing worked for you, right? You're not trying to educate them about filmmaking terms. You're trying to use basic words and try to tell them why this is a good film. So I think that's what's important, the emotional element. And I would say Conversations by Michael Ondaatje. So this is the book, if you can see it.
Yes, I can see it. This is so helpful. Thank you for sharing this.
Yeah.
So now we can move on to the second section called assembly line.
Okay.
My research says that you haven't taken any formal education on cinema or filmmaking,
right,
but you have attended a lot of workshops and maybe film appreciation courses.
Yeah.
So can you tell us what happens in such courses and what kind of cinema you have come across there?
So my film education happened mainly through like what the process I told you about earlier. I'd watch a film, go read a bunch of critics on it, or a bunch of essays on it. I'd watch another film, go read a bunch of essays on it, then come back and watch the film again. Then sometimes I'd watch the film without sound, because dialogue, once you know the story, you don't need the dialogue. And if you want to see how film moves, you watch it on silent, especially if you watch like Apocalypse Now on silent. It's really eye-opening how the film it's like a kind of visual meditation.
Yeah.
Because you're not hearing anything, not even the soundtrack, not the dialogues, nothing. It's just like you're following the silent visual picture. And I think that really, all those things kind of help me, because when you watch a film without sound, you
Mhm.
really pick up a lot about how the film has been edited, because otherwise what happens is you're distracted always by the narrative and how that's going. So I
Okay.
think all these things help me. I've been to workshops. I've been to I've always now I think those get wanting to get into screenwriting are very lucky, because there are so many workshops available on the web. There's so much information available on the web that you don't really have. There are so many screenplays available. Once what I did is I downloaded the Taxi Driver screenplay,
Mhm.
and I watched the movie
Uh-huh.
side by side, watching. Okay, the scene is written like this. This is
Yes.
how the scene is filmed.
Mhm.
So I think that's the kind of stuff that's really useful, because it helps you understand that, okay, so this is what the screenwriter did, but this is actually what the director did finally, and the editor did finally. So those
Wonderful.
kinds of things are very useful, practical, educational things, rather than just reading books about this is zoom
Mhm.
lens, this is telephoto lens. I mean, I don't that's good to know, but
Mhm.
I feel that unless you want to get into cinematography, those kinds of things are not really terribly important.
Those are some really good insights about how a film should be watched to understand more. Uh, I have come across a point you have mentioned in one of your videos about a review that you had written for Padmavat. You say that you are a great fan of Bhansali, but you didn't. You found the film very okayish
Yeah,
after watching it for the first time, and you had written a review. But after subsequent viewings of the same film, you started to love it more and
yeah,
find more things about it.
yeah.
Uh, can you tell us some such kind of learnings? Because this learning really stayed with me. Such learnings from your early days of film criticism, with the dailies you used to work with, the New Indian Express and the Hindu,
Yeah.
which could be beneficial for early, like new critics, beginners.
So see, unfortunately, I don't think my experience can be beneficial at all, for the simple reason is that I became a film critic in an era where we had time to actually think about a review and write. Now it's all the same day, right? We could give it the next day. We could give it on a Sunday. When I was at the Express, I would watch the movie once on Friday, and if I felt it was a dense movie and it needed something more, I would kind of watch it again, review it, because the review needed to be submitted only by Saturday evening. I mean, it was just a very different time. Now you can't do that. You even I have to give the review, not necessarily first on the net review, whatever, but there's a pressure to give the review, because
Hmm.
somebody's at the desk is always asking, what time is the review coming? What time is the review coming? That kind of.
Yes, totally.
So it does put that to you. So I do feel that what is most important with film criticism today is to have a bit of humility, because unless the film is utterly trash, and that, I think you need to be aware and open to the fact that maybe it's not the film so much as the fact that maybe you couldn't grasp it fully. So I think that is what the thing is. So I try to, a lot of people say that I'm a little that I don't get very definitive in my views, and it's hard to make out whether to watch the film or not. And I tell them, see, this is my view, and this is my first time view, and anyway, I don't look at it as my job to recommend films to people.
Hmm.
I look at it like most people say that they like reading my reviews after watching a film, and I really enjoy that, because I when they say that, because I really think the really good reviews are the ones that people read, that stay. The reviews that stay are the ones that outlive the film. If I'm just doing a review that says this is good, that is bad, worth your money, paisa vasool, that is only useful for the 2 weeks or 3 weeks the film is
Yes,
in
yes,
theaters.
yes.
Afterwards, nobody cares about that review, because the function of that review is over. But
Hmm.
if I write this analysis, then it's going to be of value every time somebody watches a film. It could be 20 years from now, it could be 50 years from now, and
Very
Google's
true.
up and says review. This will come up the way, we still read like reviews of people like Pauline Kael, in America, like she died a few years ago, but I still, whenever I watch a film that I haven't watched earlier, I'm always like, okay, so what did she think about it? And I always make it a point to look it up. uh, so yeah, so that's really the value I think that one brings to this.
Then how can we achieve this art of writing a wholesome review given the pressure of time constraints now? Like a review, like what you talked about, and my research also says that a review should be ideally not just a product review of the film, but actually talk about how it can be placed in the context of the films made in the same genre
Yeah,
and the filmography of the filmmaker,
yeah,
and
yeah,
also the record of the time in which the movie is set in.
yeah.
How can we achieve this in so less time?
Uh, See, when I say less time, I'm not saying half an hour, right? I'm still talking about a few hours, like 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever.
Okay.
So you do get time to mull over. I mean, the last thing you want to do is come back from the theater and just start typing away like a madman. You
Yes.
see the Jim Carrey GIF, right? He does that.
Yeah,
You know?
this GIF. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Very popular.
you don't want to do that. So that's like really the mad thing to do.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, I think see, that's what uh, actually I kept thinking Malcolm Gladwell said this, but then somebody told me that he didn't say this, so I don't know whether he said this or he didn't say this. But there's a theory out there that if you practice anything for about 10,000 hours, then you become very proficient at that craft.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, he said something like this, but I don't know if this is what. But what I took away, I write every day. I write about 500 to 1,000 words every single day. Like, I don't care whether I have a review to if I don't have a review to submit, I find movies on the web and I write, or I write something else. I write every single day. So the idea is that you're basically working out. You're basically working out your mental muscles, and like going to the gym and working out your physical muscles. Once you get to that state where you are constantly, so that when somebody puts you under pressure, you almost like how to do that. It becomes inborn, like almost like a second nature kind of thing. So you don't have to think about how do I start, how do I this. Those days of I remember when I started out in the job, I used to be in great agony every time I had to write something, because I would put myself through this insane pressure of, oh, the start has to be dazzling and the ending has to finish with a bang, and all that pressure I used to put on myself. But now I don't put that pressure, and it's actually become easier. And I think my writings become a lot cleaner. I'm not trying that hard to impress people anymore. So it's also become truer, more honest to what I am. So I think all this comes with time and practice.
Sure, true. Now we can move on to the third section called Harvest.
Okay.
So we are not film critics. We are we can watch like any film anytime, and we can watch the same genre of films forever. But
Yeah.
you have to watch all kinds of films. How do you learn to love all kinds of films without getting bored or getting cynical? How do you practice that?
See, that is a very tough question to answer, because I just think you have to love uh, art, the art. When I say the art, again, going back to music, you can't be like, I will only listen to Hindustani music, and because, film songs are popular, I know that that's the one that's going to bring me money, so I'm just going to pretend I like it and write about it and trash everything. That's a very bad attitude to take, because your dishonesty will come through. You should only get into this field if you genuinely like it. I always tell people that see, listen, if you only want to watch acclaimed foreign classics and write about them, then don't become a film critic. You make that a hobby. You start your own blog. Every weekend you see something and you watch it and you review it and do it for pleasure, and do something else for your day job. Because as a day job, this is a very treadmill like job, because films keep on coming at you. There's no getting off. So you really have to be sharp with not only your writing, but also the way you can't afford to get jaded. So it's like I'm very relieved when, after 3 or 4 films, suddenly a film makes me laugh loud or makes me cry, because I'm like reassuring myself that those responses are not, they're still within me, that after all these years I still have those responses, because I'm like, I can be manipulated, because that's what you want to be. You want to be manipulated by a film. That's what a director sets out to do. He wants to manipulate your responses in a certain way, or give you something to think about, or give you something to feel about. So when these things are happening to me, I almost feel a sense of relief that yes, that's happening. So I think you have to like all genres, which doesn't mean you have to like all films.
Okay.
But if you, it's okay if you don't like a few masala films, but if you hate the masala film itself, then you're in trouble, because you don't know how to approach a film. You
Okay.
don't know the traditions that the film is drawing from. You don't know the history of that kind of song sequence, or that kind of dialogue buzzy, or whatever it is. So
Mm-hmm.
then you're suddenly stuck because you don't know what the movie is doing.
Mm.
You're kind of floundering because you're only references of foreign films and English films or whatever it is, because that's
Yeah.
all you've grown up
Yeah.
watching. So then you should say, I'll be the English film critic, or I'll watch film festivals or whatever it is. But
Mm.
you have to know the language of the mainstream cinema, of the language you're covering, of the industry you're covering.
Looking at the audience's attitude towards film critics today in our country, it's majorly not very encouraging. Film critics are trolled a lot. Do you think this arises because of the industry's attitude towards film critics? Because what I think is that film criticism should be taken as feedback for improvement, or at least heard, if not agreed upon. But do you think, is the industry contributing towards the audience's attitude towards film critics?
See, I don't know what the industry feels about film criticism. I know that some actors have spoken out badly about film critics, and I know that some people say good things. So I don't know if there's an industry position on film critics as such. But I think I've done some amateur psychoanalysis, and I think I know why people kind of don't like film critics too much. It's because, see, everybody. It's like, to get to that music example again. Not everybody can go to a classical concert and understand. It's still considered a kind of specialization. You have to know what that rag is. You have to know a certain amount of, in order to become a reviewer or a critic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with films, they're such a democratic medium that everybody goes and watches it, right? So everybody feels that I'm qualified to review it, which is not to say they are. But what I'm saying is, the reviews, the idea is, why should, how I didn't like it, how can you like it? They put themselves on an equal plane as the critic and say, why are you more qualified to do this job than me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why should I listen to you? Why do I, you're watching the movie, I'm watching the movie, what makes you the big boss, and why shouldn't I be taken seriously? So I think I've noticed this especially when a movie is very hated and I say I like it, or a movie is very loved and I say I don't like it. That's when the most thing happens, because they've already formulated uh, that opinion in their head, and when they read the review, they're forced to confront a very different kind of opinion. And because I'm also explaining my stand, they may be rethinking a couple of things and saying, oh, you know what, actually this was there in the film, no, maybe I missed it, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So
True.
maybe that causes a lot of conflict with the lay people, because I think they like to think that, see, in our film, very very frankly, in our country, in our society, we don't take film seriously. Yeah? Just don't take film seriously. We don't know. I mean, we are still discussing whether biopics have to be true to facts and things like that. So, we are in a very childish kind of film watching stage. It's impossible suddenly to kind of, evolve into one great, film going nation where everybody kind of thinks. So there is going to be a gap between people, and if I appear a little immodest here, it's only because, like, I know there are so many other areas where other people are much better than I am,
Okay.
right? Like I know people who, we go to a restaurant and I will just say the food tastes bad, but they will be able to give you the why. They'll say, इसमें धनिया कम है, इसमें ये नहीं डाला, वो नहीं डाला. They'll be able to tell you the exact kind of pepper being used. They'll say, oh, this tastes like pepper comes from Kerala or something like that. So, and I'll be like, wow, that's amazing, because for them that's their specialization, right? For me, this is my specialization, and I've been at this for a long time. So what I'm saying is not coming from a place of uh, like I know best, not like that at all, but more like I think I'm justified in saying some of the things that I'm saying because I've kind of really put in a lot of work towards understanding this medium.
Okay, makes sense. So one of the biggest art film movements of history, the French New Wave, was started by film critics
Yeah.
who turned filmmakers. And you yourself have written two films. You have one of your films is Kalki, which is on Netflix. And so, do you see yourself getting into the process of filmmaking and screenwriting more in the future? And would you continue doing film criticism when you?
Uh, I don't know. Right now, this is the job. I love writing more than direction. I don't really see myself as a director. I might. I don't know. It might. My thing is never say never. Things might always have a way of taking me by surprise. But I definitely see myself as a writer. But whether I will get, because the problem with screenplays is they are very, very mentally exhausting things. They take a long time,
Yes.
and it's very hard to balance a day job and write a screenplay. I mean, uh, uh, sometimes you'll just wake up overnight and a scene will just flow, but I'm talking about the entire screenplay, like we're talking about 50, 60, 70
Totally.
scenes. It's very, very draining work, and unfortunately right now the you cannot, it's difficult to become a full-time screenplay writer and sustain yourself at a level that you want. Though I think right now with the OTTs and stuff like that, maybe it's become a little better. The opportunities are a little better. So I'm saying never say never, but uh, if I do become a screenplay writer, a full-fledged screenplay writer, then I will stop reviewing officially
Okay.
and continue writing reviews on my blog, so that I still, because that is really, I think those are all interconnected. The reason you're able to pick a film apart and examine it like that is also the reason you're able to put together scenes and say why the scene needs something more, or why it's working, or why it's not, or whatever it is. It's all interconnected. It's not like two separate things. So I think, yeah, if I did get into it seriously, then I would probably not write. Because the time I wrote the feature film in Tamil, I was writing Hindi film reviews, so I said there was no conflict. And when I wrote Kalki, it was a short film, so it was again not a conflict. So again, I guess that depends. But then, yeah, but I at some point I do want to get seriously into writing more. Yeah.
That's a great perspective to end with. With that, we have reached to the end of the conversation. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for being with us, and all the best for your all your projects and your
No,
work.
thank you so much for having me here, and all the best. Thank you for having me here, and I really hope that you guys get to interview more interesting personalities and put them up in places where we can all see them. And I hope at least some of what I said has been useful. So,
Definitely, all of it. Thank you for being with us. All the best and stay safe, sir.
thank you. You too. Yeah. Hi, I'm Baradwaj Rangan, and I'm a film critic. And if you like this video, do like, share, and subscribe to the Red Sparrow.